Hello, 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 everyone. This is Maxine with the Metanoia Life, and thank you for joining us today. I have my guest here with me, Denise Fuller Warren, and we are going to chit chat a little bit about gratitude and just what God has done in our lives that we are so grateful for. But first, let me introduce Denise to you. She's very, very special to me. I think, Denise, we met in about 2008, if I'm not mistaken. And Denise was my instructor when I went to aesthetic school. And
Yep.
we fast became friends because of our faith, first of all. And we just gravitated to each other. And we have been in communication. We have worked together at different times. And we have just stayed really good friends. I remember, Denise, when you were really sick, I think you got bitten, and I came and I ministered to you. I did therapy on you, and I just appreciate and love you so much.
Thank you. And likewise, over the years, I've taught many aesthetic students, and I can say that I love them all, but there is a handful of them that really are superstars and shine. And I always come back to is, they have that light inside them. And Maxine, you definitely have that light that shines. And not just because you're, you know, glorifying the sun or the moon, but you know who the actual creator is. And where your source it comes from. And that's why we're here today to, encourage one another. Little did I know in 2008 that 4 years later I would become a widower. And, Maxine was able to, again, come around because she too also suffered a loss of her husband and had small children. And I think one of the things that helped me during that journey is, she was reaching out and showing love and compassion is, the fact that she put her children first. And, it's so hard during that devastation, however your spouse passes away,
Yeah.
whether it's from illness. My husband was shot and killed, and so it was a very violent act, and it wasn't anything that we had prepared for. So I had three children. My oldest was in college, so he was away, but I still had two daughters. And Maxine, very gently just reminded me of, one, who's your source in that time, keep your peace, above all, no matter what is going on, that the Lord is going to come beside you and help you during those tumultuous times. And it was. And then the second was, keeping your children. And for me, I didn't date. I made certain that, the girls, my daughters, were first and foremost. And
Yes.
when things got a little bit challenging in Miami, because I was an editor-in-chief at the time, made the decision to move out of state and to a smaller um, town, and also be able to, be there at home because I was able to work from home. I do a lot of traveling, but the Lord brought people to really assist me, wonderful women that came around, and whether it was through a Facebook message, a phone call, or just able to stay over the weekend and knowing that I could still continue working and bringing income in, and knowing that it was going to be okay. So, the gratitude of just having you part of that journey of, being able to work through the grief process,
Yes.
I appreciate so much, Maxine.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And you are the head of a pretty large organization. So tell us a little bit about NAS and Pro.
Yeah, so I always tell people I am a licensed esthetician. I'm just an esthetician. I've been an esthetician for 30 years. I've worked in resorts. I've been an instructor. I've been a teacher. I do consulting. I've been an editor-in-chief of a very large magazine. But in 2004, I saw a need in our industry for connection. And we created what we called at the time the Florida Aesthetic Network. And our first event or our first meeting was just 12 estheticians. And for those that don't know what an esthetician, you're a licensed professional, you're licensed by your state, you go to school, you have an exam, you have a license, you hold a license to be able to do waxing, skincare, chemical peels, microdermabrasion. And the opportunity as an esthetician is fantastic. There are a lot of different avenues you can do with that license. And God has really always provided income opportunity with that license. And I'm so appreciative to being able to literally work with my hands and working on people. But as time and my career path has changed. In 2004, we created, like I said, the Florida State Network. A couple of years later, we changed it to the National Aesthetic Spa Network. So that way it would be a little bit more have therapists, for whether they're a massage therapist, cosmetologist, wellness provider, spa director, salon owner, be able to join. Our membership is complimentary. We have lots of great member discount rewards. Education is in our portal at nasenpro.com. And then we also do 7 educational events or 7 educational conferences around the United States. So between that, and then we also have a publication. So, we have that at our events. So there's a lot of different things that NASM Pro does to support the professionals, whether it's working with legislation. For example, during COVID, when everyone was shut down, Governor DeSantis called for several people to be on a task force and said, how are you going to be able to open safely? And I was a part of that committee along with school owners, a barber, and salon and spa owners. And we all gave our opinion. I can tell you DeSantis did not take all of my suggestions. But that led the opportunity for one of our other members. She knew what I was doing in Florida. She was in Virginia. She called me up and said, okay, what was the verbiage? What did work? What didn't work? So again, when you have that connection, that collaboration, that network, that synchronicity, that helps to be able to uplift a profession and those providers. So that's what NASM Pro does. We uplift, we connect people, and we educate and grow your career.
Yes, and the education at the conferences have been fantastic because they're smaller than the larger events. So you get really focused in and you learn what you need to learn. It's not
Right.
all the fluff and all the unnecessary things. So I've enjoyed the conferences over the years. That's absolutely right.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
and we've grown from those 12 original estheticians to now we have over 50,000 members.
Yes.
So it just, and our reach on all the social media platforms, from the TikTokies to the gram to Facebook and all of that. Daily field questions from, estheticians and, like I said, wellness providers from really all over the world, seeking just advice. And, it isn't just a fluff answer. If I don't know the answer, I go and do some research, or I connect you to the right person or agency. So it has truly become a full-time, I don't want to say full-time job, but it's a full-time passion of
Yes.
mine. And I really do think the Lord has given that passion and that drive to help others. And again, be a beacon of light when so many are looking for hope or joy, or, they just need some compassion. Because right now, the world we are, there's so much going on.
Oh,
Not
too
even
much.
not even in politics. Let's just take that component,
Oh,
aside. It's just in general. And I think when you can offer hope, especially when it comes to business and careers, I mean, that is incredible. And people are so grateful. And
yes.
a businesswoman, I've always said that the Lord is my CEO. And I haven't always done everything perfectly. I wish
Yeah.
I could say
None
that.
of us do.
But I do pray and ask guidance to the Lord, what areas we should go to. And then of course I do my due diligence in that area, and he always confirms. And then in my prayer time, making certain that, I'm standing on Bible verses that will support what I'm
Yes.
doing as a business. I mean, because there's lots of Bible verses out there.
Yeah.
But there are a few specific that, I remind the Lord, hey, you promised this, and
That's
this
right.
is, and
He
it's
tells
standing.
us to bring him in remembrance of his word.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to read one scripture before we continue. It's 2 Corinthians 2, verse 14. And it says, "But thanks be to God who always leads us in triumph in Christ, and through us spreads and makes evident everywhere the sweet fragrance of the knowledge of him. For we are the sweet fragrance of Christ, which ascends to God." And our relationship has been a sweet fragrance, I think. And so let us hear a little bit from you about what you're so grateful for.
I think most recently, year and a half ago, and you probably will be like, okay, this isn't anything to be grateful for. And at the time, again, I can tell you I was not grateful. Christmas Day, about a year and a half ago in 2022, again, Christmas Day, my house burned down completely. Praise
I
God, no
was
one.
devastated when I heard that.
It was, and the crazy thing about it is that my I was home with my youngest daughter and she had a friend, and none of us at the time knew that the house was even on fire. We'd come home from my other daughter from preparing, and that was actually Christmas Eve. So I mean, it's like 10:30 at night, and we're got the crock pots going, and we're sauteing garlic and onions. So the kitchen was very fragrant. And we didn't realize that an electrical fire had started, and had sparked, and until we had a pipe burst. And even then, when the pipe burst, I was just thinking water. And
Yes.
so we turned off the water. My daughter went upstairs, and I went into my office, and I see black smoke started to come through the walls. And just at that time, same time, my daughter ran down and she goes, "Mom, I'm smelling an electrical fire." She goes, "What is going on?" I went, "Call the fire department." So her friend called the fire department. I opened the door because, again, I'm not really seeing it. We're not seeing any flames
Any
whatsoever.
flames?
And so I'm like, okay, we may have smoke, but fire department, they'll come and they'll take care of it. And I didn't want them coming through my my beautiful glass door. So I opened it up. We got the animals out. So we thought, I knew that on our third floor, we had tenants. They were away for the holidays. They had two cats that unfortunately did perish.
Oh,
And then one of our cats we never did find. We had neighbors that said that they kept seeing him. And so we've just come to the conclusion that maybe some little old lady took him in the house and is taking care of him. So wherever you are, Mango, we hope you are well. But when I stepped outside to go I was wanting to move my car, I couldn't find the keys. I look up and the entire roof of the third story, this house in Pennsylvania was on fire.
oh
And
wow.
I kind of went, oh, and then there was a delay with the firefighters. The fire hydrant had frozen because it was negative 32 degrees.
Oh
So
my gosh.
they had to call in an extra truck. It took them over 4.5 hours to get this fire done out completely. Again, there was no loss of life, so praise God. And
Mm,
I had the sense to, have my daughter move her car, grab her purse, we grab computers, nothing else. Um,
yeah.
we did put on shoes. None of us remember putting our shoes on. I had started to go up to the third floor because I was trying to go and save the cats. And as I was going up the stairs, I felt this hand on my chest that said, "You cannot go up there. Turn around." And all I could think of is the movie Backdraft. And then later when I was talking to the fire chief, he goes, "Oh, absolutely." He's like, "If you would have even got up there and opened that door," he's like, "you would have been incinerated."
Oh my
So
Lord.
God's hand of protection was on it. And it was very, very, it's hard to lose everything. And
Oh,
literally,
yes.
I mean, we wound up staying with my daughter's mother-in-law, my daughter number one, her mother-in-law's, and I stayed with her on her couch for almost 3 months, still traveling, still, and I had no car because my car had been destroyed. So when I say we lost everything, and
Everything.
it was quite devastating. But Christmas Day evening, about 6:30, I received a text, and it was from an ex-boyfriend, actually an ex-fiance, from 30 years ago. And he had been feeling from the Lord that he needed to reach out to me. Well, we hadn't spoken in a couple years. The last time he had texted me, it was when his brother had passed. And I had offered condolences, and that was about it. And so I get this text, Merry Christmas. I hope you and the family and the girls are doing well. And I'm like, no, we're not. My house just burned down. I'm trying to figure out how to get underwear. Why is this ex texting me? And so I kind of put my phone down and I heard the Lord say, you will answer him and you will tell him what's going on. And I kind of went, okay, fine. But send him a picture of the house and the flames and then the explanation. Well, he got the house, the picture, and he goes, so she'd rather light her house on fire than talk to me? And so then the explanation, and just every couple days he would reach out and be like, how are you doing? And so I tell him, well, the city came in, they're condemning my house. They want to put a $45,000 lien if I don't take the house down. And he goes, okay. He's like, well, thank you for telling me what's going on, but how are you doing? How are you coping with this? And so he just was very uplifting. Didn't tell me what,
Yeah.
but just was kind of that ear of compassion. So that was in December. Well, in February, I had a NASM Pro event here in California. And so Doug said, well, why don't we meet for dinner? And so he's sharing with me how the Lord had really impressed upon him to reach out to me like all day, Christmas Day. Uh,
Wow.
I'd only got maybe 20 minutes. I laid down for 20 minutes. We got to my mother-in-law's house at 4:30 and the kids were like, Mom, you need to lay down, just rest. And then I tried to and nothing. So I had been up for 24 hours. And like I said, then getting this text was just odd.
Yeah.
So we're at dinner and then we go and take a walk and he kind of turns me and he kisses me and he's like, you are the one that had gone away and I still love you and I want to marry you. And I went, whoa, whoa,
Too
whoa.
much, too fast.
Yeah, a little bit. So little bit by little bit, obviously we rekindled friendship and love. He did ask me to marry him in June, and then we started to decide to get married in December. Well, I was traveling over the summer for NASM Pro and various commitments I had. And he called me up and he goes, I can't wait. I want to marry you now. And I went, um, I'm not a Las Vegas type girl. I'm not going to the county courthouse. We had already been looking at places and I had found a wedding consultant and I called her and I said, there's a beautiful location in La Jolla. It's called the Wedding Bowl and it literally it's a little concave. It's a beautiful overlooking La Jolla. And that's where I'd like to get married. She's like, Denise, it's a year and a half wait list. And I
Wow.
Oh, I went, well, can you contact the city because you have to have a permit to be able to have your ceremony there. And so she did, and she goes, I have 2 dates available. There's nothing in October, but in September, we have September 11th or September 12th. And I went, I don't want to do September 11th.
No.
I just don't. And I said, so September 12th. Well, in the same time I was doing that, Doug we had been calling around and for December, we had not found any location
Anything.
to have a reception. And and I was getting frustrated. And so when we had the date, I told Doug, I'm like, so hey, hun, will you join me September 12th in La Jolla and get married? And he goes, absolutely. So we contacted another location for our reception. It was called the Admiral Baker. It's a golf course. It's a military facility here in San Diego. And my now husband, he's retired military. He works for Homeland Security, has a high clearance, and over the years, over 30 years, he has just grown into an amazing man. He's not the boy that I dated, and I'm not the girl that he dated either. It's become richer and sweeter,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
it's And when I look and when I pray, because about 3 years prior to 2020, the Lord started impressing me, you need to get ready for your husband. But you need to start working on yourself.
Yeah.
Don't worry about him. You need to come to the table. And, I had put my daughters first. I had said I will not start to date anyone seriously, or date, well, I didn't date anyone, but date
Yeah.
anyone until after they graduated. And Rachel had graduated from high school. Now she's an esthetician. My youngest is an esthetician
I
herself.
I can't believe that. That's awesome, isn't it?
It is. And when I look back, I mean, unfortunately, my list of what I wanted in a husband it got burned up in the fire, but everything that I had listed, Doug is and above. Because the one thing I said, Lord, you know me better than anyone.
Yes.
You put the things that I need that I don't know that I need or that I want. But what I do want, this is what I'm going to put in. And he had literally checked the box. Now, looking back, I will tell any woman, make certain that you also write down on the list. So if something absolutely irritates you, such as driving, the way they drive, you might want to put how you prefer that driver. Just say. But my list got checked off. So I'm very grateful. And like I said, he's an amazing man. He loves God. And we have now become truly equals, that he's been able to look at my business and has seen some holes and been able to step in. And now he travels with me. He still works full time, but fortunately, he has accrued time so that he can take time. And he's like, yeah, who knew? He's like, my military buddies laugh. He's like, what are you guys doing? You have a beauty business? And he's like, no, we're not selling skincare. We're doing education, and it's so much more. But he has just been, again, a great pillar and a Boaz. And that's exactly.
That's great. That's what God knew that you needed somebody
Mm,
to come and to help to support you in your personal life, of course, but also in your business.
yeah.
And that's just God.
It is. I mean, we sit back and I'm just like, how did you know to reach out? He goes, I just had a feeling like all day, on Christmas. And he's like, I hadn't had that, and we had kept in contact throughout the years, but he was always respectful because I was married.
Yes.
He is divorced. His first wife or ex-wife is deceased, so but he was divorced and then she passed. So I mean, it's just very interesting how God, when you put certain things in his hands and just
Yes.
truly allow him to move, I mean, he will create something so much better than, I
So
mean.
much better than what you could.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I think that's such a beautiful story. Not the part about your house burning down, of course, but
Well, I laugh and I'm like, if I would have known that I was going to get this life, I would have burned that house 3 years ago. But but with that said, I mean, I had to do some things internally for myself. And interestingly enough, so did Doug. I mean, he went to counseling, and even last night we were having this conversation. He goes, we wouldn't have had the marriage that we have now if I wouldn't have put in some personal work for myself. And we both did not want the same marriage or the same situations that we had in our first marriage. And
that's
so,
so important.
and again, you just have to, and some of it is, you have to be repentive um, of some of the choices you've made, or the
Yes.
circumstances that you're in. Yeah, I mean, you have to really get real with yourself before the Lord. And it isn't, telling a friend, no one knew. My friends didn't know that I was really seeking God and saying, I want to change for myself. And what do I need to do that? And
Yes.
and when I we had our weekend where I had met Doug, and then on Monday or Tuesday, can't remember, he had gone to work, and I was sitting with the Lord, and I'm like, Lord, I don't know. I'm like, if I want to I mean, he's saying he loves me. He's saying he wants to marry me. This is really way too soon. And the Lord said, Doug has been a better friend to you than you have to him. And I was like, oh, wait. And again, we were in our 20s when we dated. He wanted to join, he joined the military, and I didn't want to be a military wife and travel.
Yeah.
Joke on me, I travel all the time. He has stayed in the same house since 1988. We are 2 blocks from my childhood home, and we're like 4 blocks from where we graduated high school.
Oh my Lord.
And he goes, "You didn't want to travel? That's all you do." And I'm like, "Joke's on me, karma." I don't know. But God brings everything and uses everything to his good and to his glory. And even though everything is really sweet, we still pray together. We still have to work on, because he has such a strong personality himself because of his military background and, always wanting to be a commander in chief. And I'm like, yeah, no. And so sometimes we're like, okay, who's really in charge? It's God. And so,
Yes.
so
And for
God,
the two to become one, there's a lot of rubbing and all the rough edges so that you can meld together. It's not easy. People think marriage is easy, but it's not easy.
it is not. It is not. And sometimes when you do marry, yeah, being older, there's some habits that, like,
Yes.
I stay up late. I mean, I get up early. I don't need a lot of sleep. So I get up early and I stay up late. Well, Doug is a very regiment personality. Again, that military mindset.
Military. Yes.
And so he likes to go to bed early, and I'm like, "Go." And he's like, "No, I can't." And I'm like, "No, yeah, you can, really." So he has kind of learned to go to bed a little bit later. I've learned to go a little bit earlier than what I normally. I mean, I still, when because I'm on the West Coast, I'm in San Diego. I've been an East Coast girl for a long time. My body is on that time. And so I was like, if I go to bed at 9, I'm going to be up at 2.
Yeah.
Now I normally start my days between 4 and 4:30, but my day starts with prayer and meditation, and then I start my day with answering emails and or writing an article if that's what's on the docket for the day. But I just want to real quickly share some Bible verses that I like
Oh,
to,
definitely.
especially as a business person. I'm not going to go, you guys can look it up, but, and this is paraphrasing, it's Isaiah 50, 4, I wrote them down. Isaiah 54, 4, these are the promise of the Lord. For me, after my first husband passed away, there was a lot of shame involved and just, trying to make the right choices, for
Mhm.
myself, for my daughters, and sometimes making mistakes, and I'm very hard on myself. If I make a mistake editorially, I just for days I will beat myself up. And the Lord showed me, look, this is a promise. I will not put you to shame. Do not feel humiliated. You and I will not disgrace you. And I think that that's such a good promise to remember, is that even though we don't necessarily know the outcome, especially when things go awry or when the storm is happening, that God is not there to disgrace you. He
That's
is there.
right.
He's going to make everything work out for the purpose, the glory, and there is a testimony in whatever the testing is at that moment. So that's Isaiah 54, 4. And then one of my daily prayers over me and my family is Psalms 91. I think most people know that one, wherever you dwelleth in the shelter of the Lord, even if pestilence comes and 1,000 may
Yes.
fall at your right hand, 1,000, yet God is going to keep you on course. And it's just that wonderful prayer of protection. And I look back and, again, with the house fire, that God protected us. Like, we didn't even see the fire until we went outside.
Yes.
And there's, it could have been worse. The trauma, the triggers that come with it. But again, we didn't.
You could have gone to bed
Yes. Yeah.
and not been able to get out of the house.
Right. None of our fire alarms. We had fire alarms all over the house. No fire alarms went off. Like, we were recanting, kind of like, well, Oh yeah, I told Rachel to grab her car keys. I remember putting my dog on the leash and getting baby Jay out. One of the firefighters found one of our cats, Cookie, and she was wet and soaked. And I mean, but I'm like, I don't remember our fire alarms. And they're like, no, no fire alarms went off. None. I mean, we had fire, like I said, in the basement and the first floor, second, none. So you're right. If we would have gone to sleep, so again, just God's protection. And so,
Yes.
daily, it's that Psalms 91. Yes,
Hmm.
it's horrible that the house burned down. We had no insurance. We had just been dropped because our house was over 100 years old. So
Oh,
that was
wow.
the to-do list of getting insurance. I had found a couple insurances, but that was like, well, it's the holidays. What could go wrong?
Yeah,
And I can tell you, if you ever get that prompting to get insurance, do it.
do it.
So yeah, because like I said, it just but my daughter had no burns on her. My daughter, no, none of us. I didn't have to call someone's parent and say,
Yes.
child passed away because they were hanging out with my daughter. So, even in the midst of the flames and the turbulence, God was still so merciful that he protected us, that we could get out. And then the other one is Deuteronomy 15:10 through 11. It says, and I think this is so amazing, especially for those that work with their hands, as estheticians, whatever you put your hands to, God will bless and all your works. And
Yes.
if you are a carpenter, or, you're working on your keyboard as an editor, writing an article, or if you are a cook or as an esthetician, because that's what we do, we work with our hands. God is going to bless your hands because you are his hands and you're allowing him to work through you, helping others. But most importantly, his promise is that he is going to bless your work.
That's so true. All my over 25 years of being a massage therapist as well. I mean, that was God always works through my hands, and I always minister to people through my hands. And that was a blessing to me as well as a blessing to them. So that's so true, so true. So tell us where we can contact you if
Absolutely.
there's anyone interested who's listening, wants to become a part of NASAN.
Absolutely. So real simple, it's nasanpro.com. So think of, and as in, think of NASA, but only, and yes, we are out of this world. So, but put an N there. So NASN, and then P as in Paul, R as in Robert, O.com. So NASN Pro, and that stands for the National Aesthetic Spa Network. To join, it is complimentary. There is a fee to go to any of our conferences because food and AV do tend to be a little bit more expensive than just granola bars and water bottles. How when we first started, that's all we
Yeah,
gave out.
the early days.
And but if you need anything, if you need a contact, if you want to talk about business, or aesthetics or your career, please, you can reach out to me. You can follow us on most social platforms at NASN Pro. You can send a message and my marketing team will definitely make certain that I respond to those questions and hopefully be able to give you some guidance or help with your career or your business.
Thank you so much, Denise. This has been such a pleasure. And I know my audience is going to just love you. And I'm sure you're going to get some feedback from the audience. And I'm so grateful to have you on this program with me this morning. So thank you all for joining us. And we will see you again soon. So be blessed from my heart to yours.